Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today I am going to be speaking to you about boundaries, the importance of boundaries in the therapeutic, spiritual, and healing spaces, and why we need to address this topic first and foremost. So, this topic is very important because there's a lot of conflicting information out there on boundaries, especially in healing slash spiritual spaces. You will have different advice for how to go about your life and how to go about your journeys. So it's important that we address this so that you can best live your life from a healed place instead of a spiritually bypassed place or an unhealed place. So I think it's first important to acknowledge how the ultimate um, the ultimate law of spirituality is of oneness, which is of boundarylessness between self and other. The boundary between self and other dissolves into oneness, and this is often a point used by spiritual people to stay in dynamics which harm them. So this boundarylessness, one non-dual advice, yes, it applies, and yes, it is the ultimate truth, but in terms of healing our egos and healing ourselves, we need to develop healthy boundaries in the first place before we go about trying to actually transcend those boundaries. And second of all, in terms of boundary work, developing healthy boundaries is incredibly important on your healing path. In healing from any sort of trauma or childhood trauma, often your boundaries were violated as a kid, and you developed unhealthy or permeable boundaries that allowed toxicity or evil to occur because you had no other choice to survive. And often people will justify their weak boundaries in accordance to some higher spiritual truth, like that oneness that we were talking about. But really what they are doing, they are just bypassing their own human healing work that they need to still do. It's not as glamorous as the non-dual transcendent state. It's painful, and it requires you to go in deep to your trauma, to your true feelings and experience, instead of into some sort of bypassing fantasy of spirituality. Spirituality ought to be thought of as, instead of becoming less or more spiritual, to become more human, as in to heal your ego and to heal your relationships in the human experience is of most greater importance to your soul's evolution than exploring these non-dual higher dimensional topics that are often just fancy outfits for your ego to try on to distract itself from the real work that it needs to do and the real work that it chose to do to come here. It's not to say that there is of no use or value of transcending the ego and of awakening, but it's important to set our priorities straight. It's important to understand Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which essentially states that the most primal human basic needs ought to come before any spiritual higher self needs, or else you will be a very unbalanced person. And you don't want to be like that. At least I don't want you to. So now I am going to speak to you on the importance of boundaries. So boundaries are deeply tied to our ego, to our ability to say no, to our ability to assert its needs. If you develop an ego that is unable to assert its needs, or to say no, or to create tension or confrontation, then you are sending out to the universe that anyone else's selfishness, you will allow them to step over you. Even if you don't say anything or do anything, that's like the vibe that you are putting out for people to read. And predatory people can sniff that weakness in your boundary and exploit it. And we don't want you to be exploited. We want to protect you. We want to protect your energy, the energy that you're cultivating to do amazing things for this world. So we need to understand the importance of, or the ability to be able to make someone else uncomfortable for your own protection, and to not see it as selfish, even though as a society we've been conditioned to see it as selfish. This last point I want you to know is that if you're drawn to the higher spiritual concepts that we ought to be all loving, and that love is the highest value, then you're probably familiar with the teaching of how everything is love. Everything is an expression of love. Some things may be a more dense or contracted expression of love, but it is still all the same substance. The universe is made out of the same substance of love. And to understand that setting a boundary is an act of love, even if it's not an expression of love that we as a society have trained ourselves to be, but it's often a more authentic expression of ourselves and what we need. And if we're able to stop those fawning or people-pleasing patterns within us, we are more easily able to show up in a loving and authentic way. A way that's truly loving, not in a way that's a mask or to get our needs met or to feel safe, but in a way that's deeply aligned with our values. If we're able to say no, then our yes will come across as so much more true and authentic and real and powerful. So that love that you want to transmit can only feel real if the people in your life know that you will say no to them if they cross any of your boundaries. So in a sense, boundaries make you more loving than if you tried to love everyone at your expense in a way that isn't authentic to how you truly want to be. So I suppose boundaries are a journey of authenticity as well. and of breaking from social conditioning. I hope that's been a good transmission for you today. I will be back next week with a new topic. I'm going to be growing this channel and making the videos more substantial, more prepared. These videos have just been me practicing speaking. So I hope you enjoy that. I hope you enjoy the future videos to come. And if you are watching this, the secret to life is